Bonjour, French 101 students. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're settling into your classes well, that all of you are getting access in Mindtap. I've been hearing from lots of you and helping you get it all sorted out. So if you do have any questions or you're still not figuring it out, definitely send me an email or visit my office hours and we'll get it figured out. So the topic that we're going to be looking at in this video is compétence 1. And as you can probably tell, compétence is a word that looks a lot like competence in English. You can see we have lots of cognates, lots of words that are very similar between French and English. And so this topic is les salutations formelles, which means formal greetings, formal salutations. Sometimes we even use that word salutation in English. I think a good place to start with this is the cultural note off to the left here. So as it tells us, people in France generally shake hands when they meet. They often do what they call faire les bises, which means to exchange kisses, which is something that definitely surprised me a lot the first time I went to France. I wasn't used to that. So definitely people have different ways of greeting each other in different cultures. And as this cultural note tells you, people don't just say bonjour or hello or bonsoir or things like that. They add a title to it. So they might say bonjour monsieur or bonjour madame. In English, we don't always do that, right? Sometimes we just say hi or hello or how are you doing? We don't usually say hello sir or hello ma'am or something that seems very formal to us. But as we'll see in French, there are definitely very formal ways to speak and much more informal ways to interact with people. And it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to maybe a work colleague or a boss, or somebody that you have to be respectful toward, you're going to use more formal greetings. If you're talking to a friend or a family member or maybe a child, you'll use less formal greetings, and we'll learn about those in the next video that comes for compétence 1. Okay, so looking at these formal greetings that we see here, I think a good place to start is just to listen to some speakers. So there's one conversation here between Hélène Cauvin and Jean-Luc Bertin. So we'll give them a listen.
Bonjour madame.
Bonjour monsieur, je suis Hélène Cauvin. Et vous, comment vous appelez-vous?
Je m'appelle Jean-Luc Bertin.
Vous êtes d'ici?
Non, je suis de Montréal. Et vous? Vous êtes d'ici?
Oui, je suis d'ici.
Okay, so we'll stop it right there. So as we can see, this is a fairly formal exchange between two people. So, she begins with saying, or he begins with saying, bonjour madame. So it's just hello ma'am, how are you doing? Okay, bonjour monsieur, je suis Hélène Cauvin. So she's saying I am, je suis. And we'll learn about how to form that expression later on in the following chapters. But just to give you a little idea of what this means. Okay, et vous, comment vous appelez-vous? So she's asking him, what is your name? Okay, and he says, je m'appelle Jean-Luc Bertin. So he's saying what his name is. And as you can see, when you go all the way down to the bottom of the page, there are some expressions in bold down here that kind of help you understand what the conversation means. So we see this expression, vous êtes d'ici, so you are from here, literally. And he says, non, je suis de Montréal. Et vous, vous êtes d'ici? Oui, je suis d'ici. So he says that he is from Montreal. And then he asks her where she is from, and she says that she's from here. So this would be a great conversation to use as a model for one of your oral presentations that you'll be doing in a couple of weeks. And by the beginning of next week, I'll be sending you information about who your partner will be for that. Once we know that the class roster is settled and established, we can go ahead and match some partners. So these conversations would be really good examples to take a look at for that. So you can definitely start practicing these. Okay, we'll see a similar conversation right here between this man and this woman, except now it's not just daytime, it's evening, and you can tell that by the picture. So instead of saying bonjour, they say bonsoir. So bonjour literally means good day. Bon is good, jour is day. Bonsoir is good evening. So good being bon and soir is evening. Okay, so we'll listen to them.
Bonsoir, monsieur. Comment allez-vous?
Bonsoir, madame. Je vais très bien, merci. Et vous?
Assez bien.
Okay, so that was a pretty short one. So we know that they're greeting each other. Bonsoir, monsieur. Comment allez-vous? Oh, comment allez-vous is just a formal way of asking, how are you? Okay, bonsoir, madame. So he says it back to her. This time he says, je vais très bien, merci. Je vais literally means I'm going, okay? But in this case, it just means I'm doing well, okay? I'm doing pretty well, thanks. And then she says, assez bien. And assez means pretty, like pretty good. Okay, so we see two formal conversations, one between maybe work colleagues, the other one may be the same thing, but they're happening at different times of the day. So you get a couple of different ways of saying hello there. Okay, another important part to look at here is prononciation. In French, we have what are called les consonnes muettes et la liaison. Les consonnes muettes, muette just means silent. So we're talking about silent letters, and la liaison means connections between letters, and this kind of determines how different words are pronounced in French, especially in a string of words. So as they tell us here, words, consonants at the ends of words are usually silent. H is always silent. We have some silent H's in English too, like hour and honest. The consonants that are usually pronounced at the ends of words, if you remember this kind of acronym CAREFUL, C, R, F, and L, are usually the consonants that are pronounced at the end of a word. The one exception to that is monsieur. We don't really pronounce the R at the end of that word. So if you see a name like Marc, don't need the flashcard just now. So Marc, we pronounce that K at the end of his name. Bonjour, we pronounce the R. Actif, okay, the F is clearly pronounced, and Chantal, clearly pronounced. Okay, so the other kind of concept we need to look at is the liaison. So if a consonant at the end of a word is followed by a word beginning with a vowel sound, or maybe a silent H, the final consonant sound gets pronounced. So let's look at the example of comment vous appelez-vous. Okay, so comment, the T is silent because it's not part of careful, as we just learned. Vous appelez-vous. If you see the S at the end of vous, normally it's not pronounced, but when it's connected to a word that starts with a vowel sound, like appeler, then we link them together and you pronounce the S. So it becomes vous appelez-vous. And the Z at the end of appeler is not pronounced because the next word begins with a consonant. Or the same with comment allez-vous. So the T normally wouldn't be pronounced if the word were by itself, but when it's followed by a word beginning with a vowel sound like aller, then we do pronounce it. So it's comment allez-vous. So this is kind of a concept that you'll practice a little bit in the Mindtap exercises as well. So it's really helpful, I think, to go back and listen to the conversation that we first heard above, especially this first one, and you can actually hear the speakers pronouncing them with the correct silent letters, consonne muette, and liaison, like connections between consonant and vowel sounds. All right, let's take a quick look at the second page of this section. Okay, and there are some other kind of exercises that you can take a look at here that are kind of good for practicing your pronunciation. If we were in a face-to-face class, we might even do this in groups, but I think maybe a more useful way for you to practice this section, like prononcer bien, is just to listen to me pronounce some of the sentences, and you can kind of practice pronouncing the sentences after me. So for example, number 1, so, je suis Chantal Hubert. Okay, so notice that the L at the end of Chantal is pronounced because of careful, C-R-F-N-L. Or bonjour, madame. Comment allez-vous? Notice that I pronounce my T at the end of comment because it links up with aller right after. Or très bien, monsieur. Comment vous appelez-vous? Okay, in this case, I don't pronounce the T at the end of comment because the word that comes after starts with a consonant. So, comment vous appelez-vous? But I do pronounce the S at the end of vous because it links up with a vowel. So, comment allez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? And je m'appelle Henri Dufour. Notice I pronounce the R at the end of Dufour. Et vous? Vous êtes d'ici? Non, je suis de Paris. Okay, so these can be good expressions to practice as you get ready to prepare your own oral conversations or presentations that'll come up in a couple of weeks. Okay, another, I think, helpful box over here is notes de vocabulaire. So number 1 is saying use bonjour to say hello at any time of the day. So, it's a general greeting, a general way to say hello. Bonsoir is to say good evening, of course. Okay, you might also notice some abbreviations for these titles like monsieur, madame, and mademoiselle. Mademoiselle we didn't talk about before. This is the equivalent of miss in English. I don't know if we really use miss too much in English these days anymore. I've heard it more in the South than I have heard it in other parts of the United States. I'm from the Midwest originally. We never use it there, but I have heard it some here. In France, we can even go back to the previous page and in the cultural note. It tells us there that the use of mademoiselle was banned in official government documents in 2012, and that was just to make the treatment of women and men more equal. I thought that was kind of interesting. So you might not hear it as much in France these days either. But often there are abbreviations used for these titles, so you might see M period for monsieur, MME period for madame, and MLLE for mademoiselle. Okay, and I did mention before that je vais is used to say how you're doing. Je suis is to say who you are. So those are two, I think, expressions that are good to keep straight from the very beginning. And you'll learn these verbs that go with je vais, je suis a little bit later on in the course. And if you take the spring semester course, you'll learn more about those. But it's good to know that up front. Okay? And so that, I believe, is everything we need to cover in this section. So I thought it would also be helpful to take a quick look at Mindtap so that you know which exercises are going with which sections. I see that a lot of you are already working hard on it and submitting your scores, so that's really great to see that, and really good scores too. So starting with RP6 right here, all the way down to PP25. And just to let you know what these different things mean, PP means these are practice exercises. RP means like getting ready, so it's sort of before the practice. And I believe those are all the kinds that we have in here right now. Yeah, so it's basically getting ready and practicing. So from RP all the way down to PP25, all of these exercises focus on les salutations formelles. So you're going to be practicing things like bonjour monsieur, bonjour madame, bonjour mademoiselle, comment vous appelez-vous, comment allez-vous. And those are the kinds of expressions you'll be practicing in some of these exercises. The very last exercise, PP30, goes with les salutations informelles, which I'll prepare another video on that topic for you for Friday. So just to take a quick look at one of these exercises, okay, we'll look at, for example, situation. And you'll see it gives you a situation and you kind of decide how you would answer in that situation. So it's your first day in a French class. What would you say in the following situation? So if you were going to greet your professor and ask his name, You might say something like bonjour madame, bonjour monsieur, comment vous appelez-vous, if you need to know their name. If you said comment allez-vous, you would just be asking how he or she is. Or if you asked vous êtes d'ici, you'd be asking if they're from this place or not. So these exercises are a great way to review what you're learning in the textbook pages. Okay, and of course, anytime you have any doubts about a Mindtap exercise, if there's something in the exercise that's confusing or you're not sure how to approach it, don't hesitate to email me, stop by my office hours. I'll be glad to help you with any of them. The goal with the Mindtap exercises is really just practice. Of course, the more correct you get them and the higher scores you get, the more successful you're being in understanding the concepts. But don't hesitate to ask for help if you need it. I'll be really glad to help you out. Okay, so that concludes our topic for today. For the next video, we'll move on to the next topic, which should be coming up right on the next page, which would be les salutations familières or informelles. So you could say familière for familiar or informel for informal. So we'll look at how friends would talk to each other or family members would talk to each other in the next topic. So we'll finish it there for this one, and I hope you all have a good night. Bonne nuit!